Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm looking forward to doing a little creating with you all today, and I'm calling this layout the layout I wasn't going to share, and I'll give you my reasons for that in a moment. I'm going to be working with the brand new Vivid Melodies 2 collection from Creative Memories. This is a fairly broad collection. There were a lot of supplies featured within this collection. There are 4 different colour pathways. We have Deep Orchid, Island Waters, Canary, and we have Cornflower. So you can mix and match all of these, or you can just stick to one particular colour pathway. It's completely up to you. Now, getting back to the layout that I wasn't going to share. Now, I've worked with the brand new Winding Vines decorative border punch for this layout, and you can see a main feature is that circular decorative element. This is not a new technique. It's certainly not a technique that I'm going to claim, because it's been jet setting around the crafting community for a very long time, and there is a list of many wonderful Creative Memories advisors that will produce similar effects to this. For that reason, that was why, you know, I wasn't going to worry about doing a tutorial, because I know there is plenty out there that you can have a look for that will teach you this technique. However, my beautiful sweet peas, a lot of you asked for the way I create my layout, so I decided, you know what, there are many different ways for using a border punch to create a circular technique, and I'm just going to share how I produce that effect. Okay, as I said, there's many different tutorials out there, and I think it's great to educate yourself and, you know, have a look at different ways people create, and you can adapt and find your own way for, you know, producing a particular technique such as this. So that was the reason why I wasn't going to share the tutorial, but since you want to see how I created this effect, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm not going to work with the same colour path that I worked for this first layout. I thought, you know what, let's mix it up and let's work with the Canary and Cornflower paper packs together. So I have a sheet of Cornflower cardstock here on my desk, and due to there being so many layers in this background, I am going to remove the centre of this cardstock. So I'm just going to take my 12-inch trimmer and align that at the 1-inch marking on my trimmer. And I'll start cutting when I've brought that blade down 1 inch, and I'll stop 1 inch up from the base. So we're effectively going to start cutting away an outside frame for this cardstock. So just repeat that on all 4 sides. And the offcut can be used, you know, for another project. You can use it to mat your photos, and we're not wasting. Okay, so we've removed a 1-inch wide frame from the outside of our cardstock, so we can set this aside for now. Okay, next I'm going to take a sheet of bright white cardstock, and we're going to gut this as well. However, the first thing you want to do is just cut that down to 11.5 inches by 11.5 inches. So this will be slightly smaller than the very base. Okay, you can save all those little strips to create some borders. You don't have to throw those away. And I'm going to do the exact same technique. So just align that at the 1-inch marking, and I'll start cutting 1 inch down from the top and stop 1 inch up from the base. So we'll have 2 little frames that we can stick together. And by removing the centers like we are from these base layers, your layout's not going to be as thick, too thick and bulky. Okay, so we've removed the center from this as well. Don't throw this away. I am actually going to show you, once we cut our circles out, I'm actually going to show you an alternate page that you can create from all your offcuts. So just an idea for it. Okay, so I'm bringing back my cornflower frame for the base, and I'm just aligning that perfectly square on my cutting mat. And you're going to want to layer the white frame over the top, and you're going to have about 1/4 of an inch showing of that cornflower. So I'm just going to come in with my repositional tape, and I'm just going to add a little bit around that inside edge of that cornflower frame, like so. Okay, just again making sure you've got that perfectly square. And I'll come in with my white base. And when you're happy, you can stick that down into place. Okay, so from the Canary Designer paper pack, I'm just selecting a paper for our background. So I can put all of these other sheets away. Slide those in there for now. So we need to cut this one down just a little bit, and I'm going to cut this down to 11 inches by 11 inches. Once again, keep your little strips that you're cutting off. They'll be great for borders or for cards for your projects. So that has been cut down as well. Now, if you really wanted to, you could remove the center from this designer paper too. I didn't, however. That's completely up to you. But this one is going to be laid over the top of those first 2 frames. And you can see that we've got a nice sandwich effect of all of those colors. It just breaks up the tone of that. When you're happy with the position, just going to add a little bit of tape again on that inside edge, just to make sure we get that stuck down into place. Make our way around. Like so. So we've completed the background option for our layout, okay? Again, if you want to remove a little bit of this center of this top piece, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. But from here, I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to work now on producing our punched circular element that features behind our photos here. So you're going to need to choose another designer paper. So this is the paper that I'm going to use for that circular element, and this is the side of that paper that I'd like to see. So I'm going to turn it over face down on my cutting mat. And you're going to want to take a ruler and pencil for this next step. Now, you're all going to have a little laugh at my ruler. I know it. It's huge, and it's probably older than I am. But I love this ruler. I do have my, my Creative Memories rulers as well. I just love this ruler because it runs off my mat, okay? I think it's like 18 inches long, so it's huge. But I love this ruler for this technique. So you do tend to get your favorite tools. Your Creative Memories rulers, they're going to work just fine as well. But for this technique, I'm going to use my very old and just a little bit longer ruler. So what you want to do, we're going to mark the 6-inch measurements on your cutting mat. So we're going to do that vertically and we're going to do that horizontally. So we're going to put a cross through this paper. For me personally, I run this measurement all the way through. And this isn't going to be the only measurements that we rule on this paper. Okay, so just set your ruler and your pencil aside just for the moment. And this is where I'm going to bring in my Jumbo Circle Custom Cutting System template. I'll just slide my paper to the side for a second. Now what you're probably picking up on my camera there is that I've got some Sharpie marker increments marked on my Jumbo Circle. You don't have to do this, and believe me, my OCD was on point when I did this because, you know, I was drawing on one of my fantastic templates. But at this step, it just helps you find the center of your page every single time. So I took a Sharpie marker, I've made sure that my template was centered on my cutting mat, and I've just marked those 6-inch increments again with my marker. Okay, so north, east, south, west. And when you've done that, you will find the center of your paper every single time. So it's just a little mark. And if you have OCD like I do, you do survive it. Drawing on your templates. But I'm just going to bring back in my paper and I'm making sure that I align those pencil markings once more, because we do want this to be, you know, perfectly centered. And I'm going to bring in my Jumbo Circle template and I'm aligning these Sharpie marker measurements that I put in with my pencil markings, and that's going to ensure that we have this perfectly centered. Okay, and I'm going to work with my red blade to cut around the outside edge. So you just want to insert those little lugs into the track on your blade, onto the track of the template, and holding your template steady, you just want to cut around that outside edge. Now, do not throw this frame away because we're going to come back to this. I am going to give you guidance on how you can use this for another layout. So we've been left with our circle, and it's at this point that we need to make some extra measurements, if you like, with your ruler and pencil. So if you flip your little circle out of the way, you're going to see your 30-degree measurements on your cutting mat. Okay, these are the markings that you want to put onto your circle. So again, this is why I love my enormous ruler, because I can see the marks easily on my cutting mat and I can align my ruler to those and through the center of my circle. So I'm just going to make my way around with my pencil and my ruler, marking those 30-degree measurements. So you're getting all your little pie shapes through your circle. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to be left with 12 pie shapes on your circle. Okay, and this is where I take my Winding Vines border punch and I flipped it over, and you'll see that I've put some little pencil markings on the back of my punch. And what I did is I just measured, you know, that opening space, and I found halfway, and which was 1.25 inches. And just with my pencil, I didn't use my Sharpie. I just used my pencil. I've just added those markings on the back, which shows us the center of what the punch will be. And the beauty of using your pencil is, you know, you'll be able to just wipe that away with a damp cloth or with your finger, okay? You're not going to be permanently marking your punch. But we're going to work with this punch upside down. And what we're going to do is we're going to align these pencil markings to a pencil marking on your circle. And we're going to punch every second line to start with. Okay, so insert your circle. And I'm lining that up to my pencil markings. So the pencil marking on my circle is aligning with the center pencil markings of my punch, and I'm going to punch. Now this is where I'm going to tell you, do not throw out these little leaves. How cute are they? So every time you punch with this border punch, you're actually going to also be removing some fabulous leaves that you can use in your embellishments. So there's no waste there either. So from there, I'm going to skip a pencil marking, and I'm just going to find the second ruling, which is there. We've lined that up, and I'm going to punch. And it's just a matter of repeating that all the way around your circle. And by placing those pencil markings on your punch, it just makes life so much quicker and easier for this technique. And our final one for that round. Okay, so once you've punched around every second pencil marking, we can go in and do the in-between markings with our punch. Now, this is where, once we've done this, you're going to see that we've actually got a little bit of modifying to do. But what you want to do is just, same as before, align those pencil markings and punch. And at this point, I think it's a good idea to just, when you empty out your confetti, just give your punch a little tap on the desk, because I would hate for you to get, you know, little bits of paper caught in there and then your punch gets stuck on your circle. But you can see you're left with these two little triangular pieces. Okay, so you've got one here, you've got one here. It's just a matter, once we've punched all the way around, we can go around with our little scissors and we can trim that away. Okay, so it's just a little bit of modifying. Okay, so we'll just make our way around the circle, but the best piece of advice I can give you is to, once you've punched, just give your punch a little tap on the table. Certainly don't be rough with it. You don't want to do any damage. But just to ensure there's going to be no pieces of paper in there that will make this get stuck. I've been there and I can tell you it's frustrating. So I'd hate the same thing to happen to you. So you might, you know, have some punches in your stash that you'd like to try this technique with. Not all of them will work that well with, you know, this circular technique. So just have a play on some scrap paper and see just what you know, can create. Just a little tap, tap. And a final piece. Tappity tap. And that's all we need our punch for at the moment. So let me just get my confetti out of the way. I'm going to go through that and salvage all those little leaves. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my smaller scissors because these obviously have the sharper tip. And what you want to do, sometimes there's a little bit of an overhang on the inside of that punched area. So you can just straighten that up with your little scissors. But it's very simple just to follow the shape of the winding vine and just cut away that little triangle. You can see there, okay, and it'll still have that beautiful edge. So just a little bit of a trim to neaten up the edges. I'm going to use the striped paper for the center of my circle. And again, if you don't want to be using this extra layout, don't use it. You can just keep your border as it was. You can modify this to suit your own needs. I'm going to align my jumbo circle on my cutting mat with my Sharpie marker markings here, and this time I'm going to use my green blade on the inside edge. Okay. So once you've cut this circle out, I want you to hang on to this border piece that we've removed. So I've got my striped yellow. Again, you don't have to use this layer if you don't want to. I'm out of repo tape. Always happens mid-video. So I'm just going to pop another refill in there. Always make sure, can you see there, you usually get a bit of gunk built up in your tape runner. So always just make sure you roll that out before you put a new refill in, because sometimes I find that gunk, if it's left there, it can actually get in the way of your new refill. Okay, so we want to make sure our circle is centered over the frame like so. It's very hard to see because my cutting mat is blue as well. But you want to stick that down like so, and we'll bring back in our background, and this is where we can stick our circular frame. That looks fabulous. I'm making sure I keep my stripes straight. We'll stick that down in place. Now going back to our cornflower cardstock, this is the offcut from when I, removed the center from our back frame. So I've brought that back in, and I'm going to use this to mat my photos. Now you can, honestly, you can use any size photo that you choose. I put 2 3x3 and 1 4x3 photo. You can choose whatever you like to suit whatever you're documenting, but I'm cutting my photo mats to be, I need one 4.25 by 3.25, and then I need 2 3.25 by 3.25. So we've got one there. And I've still got a little bit of that cornflower blue cardstock left over, so it certainly doesn't go to waste. I'm just going to, I don't have any photos printed at the moment, but I'm just going to use my photo placement cards, and then when I've printed my photos, it's just a matter of, taking these off and putting my photos into place. But I've allowed for the 4x3 photo at the base here, and then I've got 2 3x3 photos there at the top. But you can position those how you like. like so. I'll just add a little bit of repo tape to get them stuck into place, like so. And we can get them stuck into place as well. And my photo placement cards, I'll just add a tiny little bit of repositionable tape because, again, I will be pulling these off to add my photos. So we don't need to, you know, use too much adhesive there. It's a great way for when you're planning layouts to use these cards because it just helps you in knowing size and where you want the position of your photos. So with my photos in place, you can come in and just add some beautiful embellishments to your design. I've also just added some little tags here tucked in behind my photo. Now, before I go, I do just want to share with you what you can create with the offcuts of this layout. If you were to bring in the bright white cardstock square that you removed from the frame, and then we've got our two circular frame offcuts that we had from cutting our circles, and you could layer one over the top of your bright white cardstock square, layer your second frame, and because we used our measurements with what was on the paper, what was on, you know, our jumbo circular template, we're going to have two perfectly centered circles there to create your layout. And you could come in, you're not going to see these too well because they're white cardstock as well, but I would add, you know, you could add 2 4x6 photos through the center, or perhaps you would want to use a 6x4 orientation. It doesn't really matter. And then it would be just a matter of coming in with your beautiful embellishments, and you know, you can just add a few of these flowers either side of your photos, but you can see none of those papers are going to go to waste. We can create another second layout for our page, and you could add, you know, a little title somewhere there for your layout, and another little smaller flower, but they certainly wouldn't go to waste. And that's just one little example of what you could create with those offcuts. I hope you've enjoyed seeing me create this layout today and you give this a try for yourselves. But for now, take care and I'll see you again soon. Bye.